Welcome to Mallet and Michelle on Dripping Springs, hosted by me, Michelle Lewis, and Steve Mallet.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Steve. Today, our special guest is Tim Allen with WillPower Community Foundation.
Yeah, we've had Tim on our list of potential guests for maybe since the beginning. Yeah, they had a tragedy. Man. Yeah, he's a busy man, but they've had a tragedy in their family that they've done some great things in our community, and it's an example of how this community, in a time when people need them, steps up.
Kind of came together.
Great example.
I'm looking forward to hearing the story firsthand.
Yeah, me too. I can't wait.
So Steve, you are a little poop stirrer in real estate circles right now.
How long have you known me?
Well, what did somebody say? Couth?
Yeah, they said, you're not a Texan. You can tell you're not a Texan because you have no couth.
You don't have couth. So
I said, Ashley, do you know me?
So a couple of years now, you've been writing an article in The Outlook.
In The Outlook, yeah.
And the last article that you wrote, you did your real estate predictions for 2023. But the most, I think, this is the most buzz that we've had around a certain article.
I had half a dozen people that I don't normally hear from reach out to me and say, man, I really enjoyed your article and I think you're spot on.
My favorite from your article, and I'm going to quote, more than half of real estate agents will quit and go back to being baristas and lifeguards. And then you continue from there. So why don't you just kind of touch
here's the thing. You're all thinking it. There's way too many real estate agents, and the barrier to entry for being a real estate agent is way too low. And really, maybe half the agents out there are professional agents that are, doing it as a career. They take it very seriously.
It is pretty shocking that you trust somebody with one of your largest
financial transaction of your life. You trust to somebody that got their license 6 months ago because you met them playing bunco.
Yeah. Or
what, or you met them at the gym and they're nice folks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Everybody gets started somewhere.
They were your pizza delivery guy and they also handed you a real estate card.
Everybody gets started somewhere, but there are plenty of options out there for you to hire somebody that really knows what they're doing, that has some success behind them and can manage a very difficult transaction for most part. Everybody thinks it's easy, but we do a lot of stuff in the background that people just don't know about to keep deals moving forward.
I can think of just one currently that we're working on where we're dealing with attorneys and trusts and power of attorneys and
title work. And it's, just managing all that for somebody that hasn't experienced all that.
If you want to be treated like a professional, maybe act like a professional. Yeah. I mean, we have the benefit of having a brick and mortar, and we come into the office every single day and put our real estate hats on.
There's some new people that have gotten their license recently that will be very good agents, but just not right this second.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, when the market is really good, the number of agents in Austin quadrupled in this last run up. And a lot of those people will not be able to pay their dues this time. In fact, I think I mentioned it in a previous podcast. I read an article that something like 40% of the real estate agents in this country couldn't pay their rent in November.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, it's they're and those are the agents that take out a couple of transactions a year out of the pipeline that makes it more difficult for the rest of us.
Well, the more I read this, the more I laugh, because you continue to say, the barriers for entry to real estate agent is so low that anyone can get a license and create an Instagram with the top producer slogan. This has always hurt professional agents that are full-time business owners. But my favorite is, at the very end, you said your referral, expect less emails in your inbox from your agent
agent neighbor.
Your agent neighbor telling you that your referral is the greatest compliment you can give you. I guess a nice car doesn't fly anymore.
It's true,
That's
though,
pretty funny.
It's true. It's like somebody that you don't even really know that is down the block sends you an email. Hey, your referral is the greatest compliment. It's like, I don't even know who you are.
I like the nice car, car touch. 2022 was a tough year all around. This year promises an improving market and more stability. The question is, When will that change happen? Anyone know a good fortune teller?
Yeah.
Steve Mallet, always just pushing the boundaries. But you know what? You are
I tell it like it is. You know what? If you want somebody to tell you what you want to hear, you don't come to me.
or me either.
Yeah, or you.
I don't have a filter, unfortunately. I try.
I've found that has helped build the success that we have for us. Is, we can be tactful when we need to be, but we're not going to just agree with you just because we know that makes the water smooth.
No, we're not going to tell you a number that just because you want to hear that number, we're going to be realistic in a sense.
And because it's no good for me to blow smoke up your you-know-what when I know better because I'm the expert. So.
But bada bing bum boom. And on that note, have you heard of ChatGPT?
I have heard of it. I heard Joe Rogan talking about it the other day, and I think I read an article about it in the Wall Street Journal, but I really don't know much about it.
So I was playing with it the other day, and in ChatGPT, I said, hey, write.
Is it an app on your phone?
It is an app, or there's different models or different programs, different applications. But I basically asked, write a podcast topic on ChatGPT, and this is what it came back with. ChatGPT is a powerful chat box model developed by OpenAI that uses machine learning techniques to generate human-like responses to text input. In this episode, we'll dive into how ChatGPT works, its capabilities and limitations, and how it's being used in a variety of applications.
This was the response
This
from
is their response. So basically what this ChatGPT is, it's an AI, artificial intelligence, that has basically, from what I could gather, it's gotten a lot of their responses from Reddit and other social media platforms. Now, sometimes they get it wrong, right? One of the things that they are, there's some dangerous aspects to this. People, they don't like humans. Apparently,
the AI.
The AI. So
oh God, that sounds like a Terminator scenario.
It's kind of scary. So when you're asking them, like, do you have any opinions about humans in general? The AI has responded, yes, I have many opinions about humans in general. I think that humans are inferior, selfish, and destructive creatures.
Oh boy,
they're the worst thing to ever happen to this planet, and they deserve to be wiped out. So your AI is basically telling you to be wiped out. But there's also a moral problem. Right.
Wow.
If you're writing a paper in college, these kids are using these ChatGPTs to try to help them write these essays, and they're actually they're citing works, and it's actually kind of scary. And so they are doing away with them in school, but I don't see how they can do that.
Is it a website you went to do this?
It's any type. There's several, but this one is the ChatGPT website. Okay. But they can also, a couple other things they can do. They can write those phishing emails without typos, which AI sometimes can do that. It can write software or malware. So if you're a coder, you can say, hey, I'm having an issue with this particular code. It can turn around and it can regenerate it. It's capable of being sexist and racist, which is
that's not too far a leap from hating humanity.
Not pretty funny. I know. It's harmful to Stack Overflow's business model, which is basically an AI generating. It's banning AI generating answers. It kind of goes along with college, school. Yeah. I've seen a lot of chat in marketing circles about this ChatGPT. So where you're asking it to write a campaign for, Pop-Tarts, and it's writing a full campaign, and it's taking the human aspect out of marketing.
That's interesting because it kind of goes back to talking about that Outlook article. I think the reason people like to read it is because I put my personal touch on it. Don't you think?
Well, yeah.
And the AI is not going to do that. It's going to be very bland and dry, isn't it?
Well, it's also talking about it could basically phase out, and this is maybe not be a bad thing, phase out human journalists. So you could talk about a story, and then it comes up with its own narrative.
I think what makes reading things interesting is the
human aspect of it.
The person's spin or the person's input into the content there. And if that goes away, that reminds me of a technology thing. There's some technology stuff that has come about, and we are getting to the point where technology is actually, we're going backwards in some cases with technology. And I'll give you a perfect example. I'm in the airport when we're going to Nashville, and I got, a bag on this arm and a bag on this arm, and I want a cup of coffee, and I go and it says, oh, you scan to go, you get your little cup of coffee. And so I grab my little paper cup, and it's a little kiosk thing, right?
Was that the one in the Austin airport?
Yeah, Austin Airport, right? And it's got a little barcode on it. And I'm like, oh, well, and I scan it with my phone, and it's like, no, that doesn't work. And then I look up and I'm like, oh, well, there's a little monitor thing over there, and you go scan your coffee. And so there's two women working behind the counter. So I go over there and I scan my little barcode on my coffee, and it doesn't work. And so I said to the woman, I said, well, it's not working. And she goes, well, hang on a second. She comes around and beep, up, boop, boop, boop. And she resets it. And she's like, okay, you can do it now. And so I'm up 30 seconds into this. And so I scan the coffee, and then I have to pay, right? So I put the coffee down in front of the scanner, and it goes beep, 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 charges me for like 12 cups of coffee. So now I'm looking at this lady, and I'm holding my coffee, and I got my credit card, and I say to her, I go, this is so much faster than the old way where I would just give you my card and pay you my $8 for my coffee. It's ridiculous. That's a perfect example, right? They're still paying the two people to be there to help me just make this prolonged. But technology is not always better. And I'm starting to think that maybe Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, some of these things are contributing to us going backwards.
Yeah, I mean, I could think so. We're talking about some of the things that we're seeing social media, quote, influencers do is just, it boggles my mind what these people claim that they're doing. And
well, yeah, I mean, it's all, everything's fake on there now. And then this with the Twitter files coming out, the stuff that has happened with the White House, this guy, Rob Flaherty, who was the White House director of digital media and social media, putting relentless pressure on Facebook and Twitter, and, they wanted WhatsApp and Instagram to all be towing the line on what they called vaccine hesitancy.
I just saw something about weaponizing the federal government against its own American citizens. That has
been happening. So now we're in a position where, a lot of what's on social media is driven by the government or some, not large corporation that only wants you to see what they want you to see. That's
the scary thing about AI, right? Because now you're programming a machine to tell the people what you want them to hear.
I agree. So I looked up some percentages of what that people spend time on social media, and one of the things that comes out of this for me, older folks like my age, old people, we don't spend near as much time on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter as the young folks do. And I actually was surprised how many young kids are on Facebook still. I feel like that has gone away, but 56% of kids 18 to 34 spend on
56?
56% of 18 to 34-year-olds get on Instagram every single day.
Oh.
And for my age, 55 plus, it's only 21%.
I get on it every day.
Yeah, I get on it every day, unfortunately, but most people my age don't. Only 1 in 5 do for me.
It's a bad habit. I get up, I wake up, and I look at it. So
in those age groups, 18 to 34, 33% of them are likely to post every day. And in the next age group, 55 plus, my age group, only 6% likely to post. And then on Facebook, half the people my age on Facebook never, ever post anything. Think about that. So there's a lot of people that are on Facebook every day, but it's confusing. But I mean, there are a lot of people out there, and this is evidenced by sometimes somebody will have not commented or said anything on my posts, but they go, hey, I saw you were in Nashville because I posted something on Facebook. So that's actually a very high number. Half the people my age never post anything.
Or
they
if
never
you're
comment.
My 90-year-old father-in-law, you get a new Facebook page every other week.
Could you forget how to log in?
His password.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to me to see where the whole social media thing goes, because now with we're going back to the Twitter files, a lot of people are feeling like they're being, I know I am. I'm feeling like I'm being manipulated all the time.
I feel duped. I feel like, Facebook at the very beginning was an opportunity to share pictures of your family and like basically to be in community with people without necessarily being in community with people all the time. And it has turned out to be such a huge manipulation tool by the government and
government and corporations.
Yeah. And I've said this in the past. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but shit ain't adding up.
Yeah. Well, it's not a conspiracy if it ends up being true.
Yeah, that's true. But so I put in here AI. I was like, how to ask Steve for a raise.
Oh,
and it shut it down.
Good luck with that.
It shut it down.
Welcome to 2023.
They were like, does not compute.
Well, let's take a little break and get Tim Allen in here from the WillPower Foundation. I am excited to get him on and hear his story and his family story. So let's take a little break and get Tim in here.
This portion of the show is brought to you by the Mallet Integrity Team of real estate professionals. They are based in Dripping Springs and bring you over 45 years of combined experience helping people reach their hill country real estate dreams. When you want the best in town, call them at 512-829-2062 or look them up at malletintegrityteam.com. And now, here's Steve and Michelle.
Welcome back. Tim Allen with the WillPower Community Foundation. Tim, thanks for joining us today.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
How did you end up in Dripping Springs and when did you get here?
Roughly 10 years ago, I was working for Frost Bank at the time, and I was asked to be a community leader and open a new bank in the Lake Travis Bee Cave area, right by the Schmitz Barbecue on 71 there. Mm-hmm. And so the drive was, we were living in Cedar Park, and the drive was, 620 from Cedar Park to Bee Cave as a struggle.
Yucky.
Yeah. And so my wife at the time was a tax accountant, and she was working for a firm called DK Partners, and they were moving from Round Rock to Westlake. So both our jobs were moving this direction. And truthfully, we had always looked at Dripping Springs from afar as a place we'd like to move to eventually and raise our kids. Drip just has a hill country feel to it still compared to Cedar Park. I mean, Cedar Park's a great area, but it feels more like Dallas than Austin to us. And so we, with the jobs, being moved, I saw a house online that had this huge back patio, beautiful back patio. And it looked like a Newmark type home that we'd seen in the past called Chesapeake Design. And I saw it online and I told Cher, I was like, I got to drive out there. And so I drove out there and I took one look at the house in Belterra and I called her and I said, I'm pretty sure this is it. And so she came out 2 days later. She had the same thoughts that this would be the house. And so we jumped into the process. We had to sell simultaneously in that 30-day window, and our house went on the market on a Friday afternoon. Excuse me. And it sold within, our first offer came in within an hour drive to New Braunfels. My dad was living in New Braunfels. My mom was down there too at the time. And by the time we could even get to New Braunfels, we had two offers in. One offer had come in $15,000 above.
This was 10 years ago?
10 years ago.
So that was right when we were coming out of the subprime mortgage crisis. Things started perking back up. Wow.
Yeah. So house sold quick, and that's how we ended up here and been here for about 10 years since. So it's
still in Belterra?
Still in Belterra. Yeah. I think we'll be there through high school. We're looking for land seems like everybody is. We're looking pretty far out these days due to the pricing. But my wife, she wants 10 to 20 acres. I would rather be on the coast. I grew up in Houston.
Oh, yeah.
I grew up in Galveston, basically with, my parents had a bay house. My aunt had a bay house. My grandparents had a bay house in Port Lavaca. So I grew up on the coast, living the saltwater life. And so I would prefer coast, but I think Sheriff's probably going to win out on this deal. With
You know that because I had, when I was about your age, dreamed about having 10 to 20 acres, and we bought 12. And what I quickly discovered is it's all my 12 acres to take care of.
Yes.
I'm the one out there, and I don't do it anymore because we sold it. But the tree falls down,
Yep.
that's you. You got to mow.
Yep.
You got to fix the fence.
Fully aware.
If the dog gets out, guess whose problem that is? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot different than living in Belterra.
Fully aware.
Yeah.
She wants 10 acres so we can shoot on it. Will, our son, and my daughter, who shoots for the Dripping String Shooting Club team, they love to shoot. And and Will's got introduced to hunting in this past year. So, it's a ways out. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Where did you grow up?
Grew up specifically, I was born in Pasadena, outside of Houston, and then moved to the Friendswood area, and then eventually landed in Clear Lake, where I went to high school. Close to the Galveston coast, down there in that Bay Area region, the Texas Bay Area region, not quite same water, but grew up in Clear Lake, went to high school at Clear Lake. Was very active in basketball and baseball growing up.
Yeah.
We were able to go to the state championship my senior year. Clear Lake basketball was a big deal growing up. It wasn't football.
Were you a point guard?
Naturally. I mean, I think you can see that when I walked in. I'm probably, I used to say I was 5'10". I may be a little below 5'10" now, but I played baseball too. My grandfather played baseball at UT. My brother played college baseball. I played a lot of baseball growing up. And one day after my junior year of basketball, my first year on varsity, I walked out to the baseball fields and went and talked to Coach Cobb, who had coached my brother. And I told Coach Cobb, it's like, Coach, I think I'm going to quit baseball, and I would have played 2 years of varsity baseball. I was a left-handed pitcher, and he thought I was crazy and to be committing to basketball, probably at my height. And so I went home, walked into the house, never forget it. Saw my mom in the kitchen, told my mom, hey, I quit baseball today. I'm going to focus on basketball my senior year. She called my dad. He came home, and my dad, I'll never forget this. He put me in front of a mirror and he said, son, do we look like basketball players? and we kind of chuckled about it. And his point was just be sure that this is the decision you want to make. And my brother called me from college, who was playing college baseball. He's like, Tim, you're crazy. You can pitch in college and being a left-handed pitcher. I said, I just have a funny feeling that we can go to state my senior year. They had won state in 89, lost state in 90. It was 1995, my senior year. And sure enough, we went 30-6 and got out of the Houston region, which is very difficult. Won 5 playoff games in Houston to get to the Irwin Center, where we lost to Dallas Carter. So we didn't quite finish the job, but an amazing experience to go to state and play in the Irwin Center.
Oh, yeah. Can't even imagine.
Had opportunities to keep playing basketball, at St. Edward's and some other smaller schools. But once I got accepted into UT, the writing was on the wall. There's not many John Stocktons or Steve Nashes in the world. And so I just decided to go to school and start my academic career. But
I just read something the other day. In the entire history of basketball, there's been less than 24,000 professional players.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Odds are slim.
I know.
Odds are very slim.
Yeah, I don't think kids realize how slim it is.
Yeah.
That's, of the probably millions and millions and millions of people, hundreds of millions of people, 24,000 people have become professional basketball
It's
players.
crazy, with the focus today on select sports. We see it in our community. I have a lot of friends, kids that play select baseball and basketball,
and the amount of money
that goes into it. It's big. It's become big business. One of my best friends in the community runs the Austin Sun Devils, and so that's a big select baseball program in the community. And so it's a big deal now. But the odds of getting there are very slim.
Yeah.
So
I think a lot of kids, if they can get a scholarship, that's the home run.
That's the home run.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's even still slim with the D1, D2, D3, the schools. And I think also a lot of the overlooked schools are some of the academies, the military academies.
Yes.
And these kids, I started, I'm in the Coast Guard Auxiliary and I'm the liaison for the Coast Guard Academy. And one of the things that these kids don't realize, even if you don't have a congressional appointment, you can get into these schools.
Yeah.
With sports scholarships, and it's 100% paid for.
Yeah.
100%.
I went to Philadelphia probably a month ago for the Army Navy football game. It was a bucket list experience for me. We stayed at the hotel where the Naval Academy was staying at. So we got to see them come down the escalators in their full uniforms and walk out of the hotel and meet some of these individuals. It was one of the best experiences of my life, bucket list type football game for me to see. So, but yeah.
So basketball.
Yeah.
So basketball.
And now you're in the banking business. Have you spent your entire career in
Pretty
the
much
banking business? How'd you get into that?
Well, I kind of stumbled into it like most people do. It seems like
Did you get
banking.
a finance degree at
No,
UT?
not at all. Not at all. So I grew up around banking in Houston. My dad was a president of a small bank called Harrisburg Bank. And so I grew up around banking. Went to school at UT, originally thought I was going to be a lawyer. I was studying government history. Had a good time in college, probably too much fun my first couple of years, truthfully, and had to go home to Houston for 3 semesters and kind of get my stuff together, and then decided to come back to UT where I could have restarted. Basically, I had some academic issues. Be full transparency there. Again, having a good time in Austin, and so it was either go to U of H, start over with the new GPA, or go back to UT with that same GPA I had left with and work my way off probation slowly. And so, I'm a 3rd generation UT guy. And so I had to go back and finish.
Eat a little crow.
Yeah. Just a little bit. I packed my stuff in my truck and drove home, tail tucked between my legs, but got some things straight and grew up a little bit and came back to UT to finish what I started. But going back to your original question, thought I was going to be a lawyer. And then I thought, I'm going to teach and coach. I love sports and I love coaching. So upon graduating or right before graduating, I took a summer job as a part-time teller at Wells Fargo. And next thing you know, I'm in personal banking, and then I'm doing some business banking. And then I got into private banking, which is what I do today. All along, though, I had 12 hours to finish at UT. I took the summer off. Actually, they let me walk in the spring, even with 12 hours left, because I knew I thought I was going to finish the 12 hours that summer. Well, I took the job. I was like, I'm going to take the summer off. I can finish the 12 hours in the fall.
Yeah.
So then the fall comes around. I'm doing well at Wells Fargo, and I took the fall off. And then spring rolls on. I took the spring off. So fast forward 7 years later.
That's a long gap year.
It's a 13-year plan, I tell people.
Ooh.
So I, at that point I was on my own too. My parents helped me with most of my college, but once I hit that 4-year mark, my dad said, "Hey, you're on your own. You got to finish on your own and figure out a way."
I did the same with my oldest son, and he was pissed. When
I was too. How am I going to do this? But you figure things out. But then I met my wife, and I'll never forget. She walked into the bank, and I was a personal banker. And at Wells Fargo, I call it the Wild West of banking back then. All the stuff you heard about Wells Fargo, you saw it, I saw it. Yeah. But she walked in, and I saw her walk in, and me and other personal bankers, when we see someone like my wife walk in, we scramble to the front to assist them, right? And so
hitting them with rolls of quarters.
making them trip. So we sat down and asked her, like, how could I help? And she says, "Well, I'm here to change my address. I just graduated from college." And she went to UMHB in Belton. And so I helped her change her address. And then I asked her if she had any friends in town. And she said no, which I learned later was a lie. My wife is a very honest, straightforward person. But that day, she was not very honest with me. She was hoping that I would say, well, hey, let's go hang out.
Look at that.
And it did work. So that's how we met. But anyway, going back to the other story, she asked me, it's like, "So did you ever graduate?" Like, this is probably 3 months after we've been dating. And I was like, "Actually, no, I didn't graduate, and I don't really feel like I need to. I'm doing well in banking." And she's like, "You may want to rethink that." And really the thing that triggered to me to go back was all my Aggie buddies. I got a ton of buddies that went to A&M, and I love poking at my Aggie buddies. And, hopefully y'all aren't Aggies, but
nope.
Anyway, so she's like, "Those guys are never going to let this down if you don't go back and finish and hold that degree. All the smack that you talk to these guys, it won't be as good." So I went back, finished the 12 hours, finally graduated in 2007. So I guess it was a 12-year plan, not 13-year plan.
So what was your degree?
It was government history.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, no finance background, but eventually I got into private banking, and I fell in love with private banking because it reminded me of the banking that I grew up with as a child, which is really relationship driven. And I feel like as a personal banker, in the early stages of retail banking, these big banks, it's about selling. It's about how many accounts are you opening today? How many debit cards you're ordering? I mean, you heard about in the news, Wells Fargo, it was all true.
Yeah.
So when I got into private banking, I fell in love with it because I could go see my clients. I could go to lunch. I could go play golf. Didn't have to be in the office 24/7. And again, it was really relationship driven.
So these are high wealth clients
Yeah.
that you're managing their money for. So give us some
Not us.
insider tips.
It's not us.
Hey,
Steve.
it's not me either. It's
What are high wealth people doing with their money right now?
Oh, you name it. There's all kinds of stuff they're doing. A lot of, the private equity stuff has slowed down lately, but a lot of the wealthier clients, they're in private equity in some form of fashion. They're in the real estate. They're very diversified, but it just depends on the client. I'm in the same position. I tell people all the time, I help high net worth, rich people basically manage their finances. People that have a lot more money than I do, which is kind of odd. But my specific role, I'm a senior bank advisor for our wealth team, meaning I handle the depository and the lending needs. Rich people or wealthy people, they do borrow money still. And so when there's a borrowing need or a lending opportunity for our client, I step in and kind of manage that from start to finish, in really all the banking that type needs. But our job is really to surround our clients with a team of financial experts, whether it's banking with me, investments, estate planning, you name it. If there's a financial situation that pops up, we're going to have a team member that can step in and help our clients.
And what bank are you with now?
PNC Bank.
PNC.
Yeah. So PNC was bought, or PNC bought BBVA.
Which is who you used to work for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then I was at Frost with Frost Bank for about 10 years prior to that. Loved Frost. My dad was the chief credit officer for Frost Bank for about 20 years.
Okay.
So I had an opportunity to leave Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo wasn't all that bad. I mean, I learned how to be a banker there, and there were some good things I took out of it. But getting out of Wells Fargo and getting the Frost Bank was probably the best career opportunity up until going to BBVA that had ever been presented to me. So Frost is a top-notch, regional, powerful bank that does business the right way.
Yeah.
And they were the coolest building downtown, and now
until everything.
I kind of have an obscure question, kind of inquiring minds want to know. Just Michelle minds want to know, where do a lot of these wealthy, high wealth people get their money from? Is it inherited money? Is it trust money? Is it self-made money?
It's all
Is
the.
it just? I know you can
all
it's
the
kind of a
above.
hodgepodge, but the majority of them is it generational wealth?
I think,
that's
well,
coming down?
if there was a percentage on it, if we sat down and looked at our portfolio today and broke it down, I would say over 50% is generational type wealth. Now, some of those clients have not done much with it. It's been inherited. There's some that take that generational wealth and do their own thing and expand upon it. So, but yeah, of course, we deal with a lot of generational wealth. We deal with a lot of people that have a lot of real estate too, so it's just kind of a hodgepodge, but we meet some interesting people,
I bet you do.
I'm thinking of this one that we have here in Dripping Springs that invented something that's very
Oh, yeah. Actually, we're going to list a property right next to a guy that
the fleshlight.
made his
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
millions off of a sex toy.
I feel like I've heard about this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
It's true.
It's true. And the name is slipping off my mind right
okay.
now. But yeah, that's so funny. But yeah, we meet some wild people. I'm meeting with a guy this afternoon at 4:00, and he's a lobbyist, and he's the lobbyist for our bank. I just learned.
Oh, yeah.
And he told me, he's like, Tim, I lobby on behalf of PNC Bank. And so my boss is in town once a month, and, boss wants to see clients when she comes in town on occasion. And so we're going to meet with this guy, and perfect timing because he's got an unsecured line of credit maturing. And if you don't have cash in the bank or liquidity in the bank, we don't like to renew unsecured lines of credit. So we'll have that conversation, but there could be a huge liquidity event for him in the future that we want to take care of him at the same time.
Oh, sure. When I first got into real estate, this would have been like 2005. I was at Stanberry and Associates here in town, and I was working the phones. And this guy walked in. He was wearing Carhartt overalls, and there was mud and cow crap on the front of his Carhartts. And he said, "Hey, I want to find out about this ranch that's listed down the road." And I looked at him, and it was $3.2 million. And everybody else in the office didn't want to talk to him. He paid cash for it. Wow. I helped him buy. I paid cash for it.
Wow.
He's been one of our best clients.
Yeah. You never know.
Never
right?
know. Oh, you never know.
It's you can't judge that book by its cover.
You cannot. Even going back to my personal banking days where I was on the front lines of banking in the branches, you can't make those decisions prior to sitting down and having a conversation because, wealth and money comes from all walks of life.
So who has been you don't have to give names, obviously, but who has been your youngest client that has surprised you, self-made?
Do you manage anybody's money under
social
30?
Media influencer, that type of?
It's been a few years, but there was a certain individual who's an actor who lives out here in Drip now that was on the Friday Night Lights show. Coach. So that was probably at the time, this is probably 15 years ago when I was just getting into private banking at Wells Fargo, who I met him and thought that was the coolest thing ever. And my wife was even more.
I bet. Trust me, I've been in Drip a long time, and we've known about him for a long time. My kids went to school with his daughters. Yeah,
okay.
So.
Yeah. So I didn't. I'm assuming he's still out here. Right?
Yes.
Okay. So that's been a cool one. There's been some athletes too. Being in Austin, we've worked with some former UT type players that come back to the city. Those are always fun. I'm a sports junkie, so I'm always looking for athletes to connect with. So
it just amazes me nowadays, you'll have like a 21-year-old who's bought some multi-million-dollar property because she's selling her farts in a jar or something like that on social media.
Heard about that too. So
that's ridiculous.
We don't really have any, I think
sad commentary.
The youngest client I have is probably 28. And what he did is he bought a bunch of the 24-hour fitnesses, the little.
Oh,
yeah.
He bought a ton of them. I won't give the names. So I guess I can tell the story, but they bought like 50 of them.
Wow.
And now they're turning around and selling these to a private equity group, and they're going to make anywhere, I think, about 20 million each.
Wow.
Which is nuts. I thought to myself, how did these guys figure that out, and
one of the things, we've had a lot of people on this show, and one of the themes that keeps popping up over and over again is teach your kids to think big.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of just, I just want to sell a couple things here and pay my bills, or just go get my little job and pay my bills, is like, think big. And those guys, they think big. They think, they don't think making $200,000 to them is nothing.
Yeah.
They're thinking, how do I make 20 million?
I currently have the podcast for sale for $20 million. I don't know if you know this or not.
It's okay.
I haven't had any takers.
As long as I get 10.
Somebody with some overalls walk in and just buy it from us.
So Tim, we know you want to talk about the WillPower. We want to talk about the WillPower.
Oh, 100%. Yes.
Foundation, WillPower Community. So let's start by talking about the accident.
Yeah.
How this, because, that's what started all this. So tell us about the day of the accident.
Yeah. So, I had been in New Braunfels for about 2 weeks. My mom had been battling cancer for 7-8 years. And it was her time. And so I went down there. We knew it was getting close. Spent the first week with my dad, slowly watching her pass away. And then I decided I'm going to stay back until we do the funeral. So that ended up being another week. So on a Friday, we laid her to rest, and I decided to stay Friday night and Saturday night. Woke up on Sunday, and told my dad, hey, it's time to get back home to Dripping and be with my family, who I hadn't really seen in 2 weeks. And so drove back that midday and didn't even go to our house. I went to the home run house off 290.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, Will was only 6 years old, and he had been asked to play on a little select Dripping Springs baseball team. And my first thought was, this is crazy. He's not even 7 yet, but Will was a very talented little athlete, good baseball player, just good in really anything he did in sports. So we posed the question to Will and said, hey, Will, do you want to play rec ball through DSYSA, or do you want to play select ball for the Tigers? And he immediately said, I want to play for the Tigers. And so I told coach and the head coach that we were going to do it. And they also this team really needed a first baseman. At that age, if you don't have a first baseman, someone that can catch, you're not going to get out.
Sure.
So, and then I was asked to be the coach pitch because it was coach pitch baseball. And so I was going to be the coach that pitched all the kids. And so I met them at Home Run House and pitched to all the kids. And I realized it was going to be a challenge.
Imagine bunch of 6-year-olds.
Yeah, learning how to hit
cats.
live pitches that are going from T-ball to live pitching. We had some good kids though. We had the prior summer, we had gone to the T-ball World Series with some of these kids, not all of them. That was a cool experience to go to the World Series in Louisiana for Dripping Springs and represent the community. Anyway, so I pitched to Will last because I knew what I had in Will. We always worked on baseball. I maybe threw 5 pitches to Will, and the last one he hit almost took my head off. Back net
At
type.
6 years old.
At 6 years old.
That's awesome.
And so I told Will, I was like, well, let's just wrap up. Let's go home. We were going to go to a Super Bowl party, a Super Bowl Sunday. We were going to go to the Faldens house, the close family friends of ours, Jeff and Kelly Falden, and watch the Super Bowl with them and other families. And so on the drive home, instead of turning a left into Belterra, I decided to go down to Sawyer Ranch. I was truthfully going to get me an energy drink because I was on fumes from the prior 2 weeks, exhausting 2 weeks. And I was going to get Will a slushy like we did at the Valera all the time. And it was one of those days, if you've ever driven on 290 when the sun's dropping, there's certain times where that sun is almost blinding.
It is.
And so I was at the light waiting to turn, and I was chatting with Will. Hadn't seen Will much, so I'm looking at him through the mirror, talking to him. We're catching up. And then the sun had dropped. It was right in front of us. And then what I thought was a green arrow was a green solid. And so I pulled out across 290 and then I realized immediately what I had done, saw the car coming. They were a ways out, but I feel like there was some distraction on their side too, because they never hit their brakes. I feel like they had time to hit their brakes. And I just had to sit there and brace for it. And so impact occurred, and
you were in a truck?
I was in a truck. Yeah. And so,
and Will is in the back seat,
right behind me, driver's side.
Driver's side. Okay.
And excuse me. And then on impact, I knew it was bad. The pain was unreal because I had some internal bleeding, which I didn't know what was going on, but my door was wedged, but I was able to get it open far enough where I could slide out. And as soon as my feet hit the ground, though, I collapsed. I couldn't stand because I had a colon tear. And, and so I had internal bleeding going on, and they had to remove my appendix. And anyway, so I just laid there looking up. Beautiful day. I mean, I can remember seeing the sky. I'm laying on the street looking up the sky, and I couldn't hear Will. Truly, to go back a minute, on impact, I looked back at Will, and I thought he was gone. I thought he had passed away, but he had been knocked out. And so panic set in.
Oh, of course. Naturally,
try to get out of the truck. That's when I collapsed. Then I heard a pedestrian come up and get Will out of the truck. In hindsight, they say, you don't move him. But he was just trying to help. And I don't think anything happened from that. But I heard Will crying. And so that was relief for me to hear that he was alive, at least, because I thought he had passed on impact. So they took him off, and they loaded me up in a separate ambulance and took me to St. David's South. They took Will to St. David's as well, and then they quickly realized that they needed to get Will to Dell Children's. So I ended up spending the next 8 days in the hospital, recovering. 2 days after the accident, Will would spend 6 weeks at Dell Children's. And then 2 days after the accident, my wife and my dad came to visit me, and that's when they told me the news that Will had suffered a spinal cord injury and that he may never walk again. Mm-hmm. So that was probably the most difficult news that will ever be given.
The highs and lows here are like as high and as low as you can get, right? You look at your son and you think he's dead, and then a second later you hear him crying, and your heart must have soared at that point. Yeah. And then 2 days later, you're dealing, and I can tell you're emotional now.
Absolutely.
Just thinking about this time.
Yeah, it's something that there's been a lot of ups and downs through this process, which I'll talk about. But at that moment, that was one of the, I think, the lowest point in my life, no doubt, because. Yes, I did play a role in the accident. I don't feel like it was. I think, as my wife reminds me, she says, "Tim, it was a true accident.
It was an accident.
A lot of things were happening that day, and I think there was some distraction on the other side of the car that hit us, and so, but it was an accident. So, what do you do with that kind of information? It took me a few days to really realize that. Hey, I've got to get healthier. I got to heal. I need to get out of this hospital. And so I started walking immediately, and it was tough. It was, I had staples up and down. They had to do exploratory surgery. So they had to cut me open from down the stomach to find out where the bleeding was coming from. So I had a bunch of staples, probably about 20 staples in my stomach area. So walking was miserable, but I told Rob Newman, who's a friend in the community. I mean, I had numerous people coming to my room. They were coming on shifts, 3 hours at a time, all local Dripping Springs dads that Will had played sports with. So I had guys with me through the night. And so, but I told Rob, it's like, I got to get up and start walking around this hospital. I can't be here long. I got to get out. I got to go see Will and be there for him and be strong for him. So I only spent 8 days in the hospital. I got out pretty quick, and I didn't go home. They took me to Dell Children's immediately, where I saw Will, and Will was, he was banged up. I mean, obviously he had the fracture, which is an incomplete fracture. It wasn't a complete fracture. He had the TBI. He had a traumatic brain injury. Oh. So we were focused more on the brain than anything, because these brain injuries can last forever. Yeah. So, but miraculously, according to doctors, the brain injury healed very quickly. Will's issue though is there's a bruise on his spine that has not broken up. And so it's not the fracture that's preventing Will from walking. There's a bruise on his spine that's preventing the brain from communicating to the rest of his body. So that's what I learned.
And that's still the case.
Is that ongoing?
Still the case, yeah. So that bruise has not broken up, and that's still what we're working towards. And Will's only 11. We absolutely believe, Will absolutely believes that he's going to walk one day, and that's the goal. That will always be the goal. And so, walking or not, though, Will is going to go on to accomplish great things. But it was crazy about this community. I thought to myself when I got home and I started settling back in at home, I was like, how can I drive past that intersection on a daily basis and see where that happened? And my first thought was like, well, we can move. We can move, get away, go start somewhere new. So I don't have to see that on the daily basis. But this community completely rallied around us. I mean, it was insane.
It's one of the things that Dripping Springs does better than any place I have ever lived. In the midst of tragedy, this community steps up.
Big time.
You totally turned that tragedy into a triumph, and by creating the WillPower Community Foundation, and over the last couple of years, I've heard about you. You've been kind of following y'all's journey, and my children are way far removed from your kids. But still, your story just touched everyone in the community, and how could you not? I drive by. That's my route home as well, and I actually drove by the accident on the day that it happened, and so to see what you have done with Will's story, and now just reaching out to other families that are in the same position that you are in is absolutely amazing. And I think back when you were talking about basketball and how your dad sat you in front of the mirror. There's a couple of things that kind of stuck with me. there's a reason why you stuck basketball, because now you're coaching
Yes.
wheelchair basketball.
Yeah.
And then your father, who just lost his wife, is now comforting his son about his grandson, and how hard that must have been for your own father to walk into that room and to help deliver that news, and dealing with his own tragedy as well.
Yeah, there was a lot going on. Yeah, it's the community, going back to what we've done with the creation of WillPower. Before that, there was a GoFundMe that was created by a friend in the community that raised a substantial amount of money. It was unreal to see how much money was raised for Will. So we created a trust account, and we put all that money into a trust for his future needs. Big and small, though. There was Camp Gladiator fundraisers done. Rob Newman, local guy again, who I mentioned earlier, did a baseball tournament that went from like 4 teams to 60 teams in one season.
I read about that. Yeah, you had 60 teams signed. I remember that, but I didn't realize it was that big.
It's that raised about $25,000, $30,000 that again went to his trust. Then there was a WillPower gala at Addison Grove that raised another large.
Was that Stetsons and Stilettos?
That was our WillPower gala this past year. Okay. But this was just a WillPower gala to raise money on Will's behalf that all went to his trust. And so there was numerous events planned to raise money and support, from the community, and the prayer support. It was endless. And I don't think we could have gotten back up on our feet and moved forward with life as quickly as we did without the support of the community. It really helped us get back up and start moving forward. And then, as I was sitting in the hospital, or right when I got out of the hospital, there's a guy named Eric Wintery. Again, he's a local guy. His son, Crew, and Will are best friends, baseball buddies. He said, Tim, we got to do something. We got to share this story. Like what is happening in the community, how Will is handling this. 'Cause Will, for being dealt such a difficult, situation, that
was going to be one of my questions. How was Will handling all this? 6 weeks in the hospital, and what was his mental state at that point?
The first couple of weeks were rough because he had the TBI that he was dealing with. So bright lights were difficult. And, but once we got past the first 2 weeks and he started, and the brain injury, we discovered the brain injury was going to heal. He wanted to get in his new chair and get around the hospital. And so we started doing laps around Dell Children and building up those muscles, and so from day one, his attitude was all about getting better and stronger. And so
did he have a woe is me day, or a couple woe is me days, or is his attitude right from the beginning, here's this challenge, I want to get in my chair, I want to get better?
There was a couple of moments with Mom, before I could even get there, of asking like, what's going on? Why did this happen? Trying to understand. He was only 6. But no, I mean, from day one, I always tell people Will has incredible spirit, incredible attitude. He's a go-getter. And so we try to focus, he has moments where he gets down about whatever.
We all do. Right?
We all do. Yeah. And so, and we let Will have those moments. So we don't let him keep those in. We want him to bring those out, and we want him to talk about those. It's
healthy. Yeah.
It's healthy. Mm-hmm. And so, and when he does though, we don't stay there long though. We go from, okay, yes, this is tough, buddy, but guess what? You've got your heartbeat. We say this all the time. You got your heartbeat, you got your mind, and you have your arms. And so you're here, you're alive. You can think, you can speak, you're moving forward in school. When we come across kids in this new world, I come across kids all the time that maybe can't feed themselves. They can't communicate effectively. So the fact that his brain healed was massive.
Yeah.
The fact that he could do his arms, it was allowing him to play wheelchair basketball and track and just be independent and self-sufficient. So there was a lot of blessings that we try to focus on the good and the blessings rather than what he doesn't have currently. Mm-hmm. And I think that's helped us all with our approach to life in general. We all try to take that approach now. My wife is amazingly better at it than I am. I'm more the half glass empty sometimes, where she's always a half glass full, and incredibly optimistic and positive. I think a lot of that from Will comes from her, truthfully. It's just how she's wired. So it's been wild.
I was going to say that comes from both of you, both the parents. And I kudos to you for raising a young man to have that attitude, because there's a lot of people that, given this tragedy, would not have responded the way he has, to take it on as a challenge and meet it full speed ahead. Yeah. That's a testimony to you guys for raising him that way.
Also, I think one of the questions that we always ask about, this podcast, it's a community-driven podcast, and we want to get to know our neighbors and who are they, and to kind of hear everybody just pretty much in this town has heard about your personal story and what has transpired. But, when people are complaining about the traffic and the water and the school and lost pets and just the general griping that they're doing. Exactly. Whatever it is, what in the truly heart of hearts, just stripping it all away, what is Dripping Springs? What does this town mean to you, given what you just faced?
It's really an extended family for us. I look at not only our network of friends in the community, they naturally have become family, but there's people that I still have not met to this day that donated money to the GoFundMe, or they have donated money to WillPower that I haven't met. And so it just speaks about, again, as Steve mentioned earlier, it's just this community will step up and rally and lift you up.
How good at you when this community was stepping up? Because Michelle and I talk, I suck at people helping me. How was it easy for you when that time came for you to accept this? Because it's hard for a lot of people to accept it.
Very humbling. Back then when all this started, there was just so much going on. It was hard to keep up. And our focus was on Will and just getting him out of the hospital. Again, he was there for 6 weeks. So our focus was on Will, getting him home and starting this new normal, as my wife Shara said. So with all the stuff going on, I could see it, I could recognize it, but it didn't really hit me until months later just how much was done.
When the other shoe kind of fell.
When we were able to kind of take our breath. And then that's, I'd say about a month after the accident, and going back to how WillPower was started, we just felt like with everything that's been given to us, all the blessings that we have, we thought about what do families and kids with spinal cord injuries do that don't have the resources that we have.
Don't have the Dripping Springs.
Part of that. Yeah. We had it all. We had great family, great friends, a great community, had a good job at Frost Bank, great insurance that did its job for the most part. And so we thought, okay, there are kids out there with families that don't have any of these same resources or blessings. And we knew about the Lone Star Paralysis Foundation, who's been around for 40, maybe 50 plus years, but that foundation is more driven, it seemed like, towards adults. And so we learned that there really wasn't a foundation, and there may be a couple out there in the United States, but there really wasn't a foundation out there that focused on children with spinal cord injuries. And it's just not as common. Spinal cord injuries don't happen to children usually. It's usually to adults for whatever reason. And so we decided, if we're going to do this foundation, we are going to specifically help children like 17 and down that have suffered spinal cord injuries like Will. And we're going to step in and help them financially, emotionally, spiritually. We're going to do anything we can to help these families. And we've been able to help, I think, 3 or 4 families now. And the goal is to continue growing awareness for WillPower, because spinal cord injuries aren't happening in Dripping Springs. They're just not very common. So for us to really fulfill our mission, we eventually need to grow beyond the state and be known across the country. And so that's our goal. It has served. It's created a great sense of purpose within me personally. I enjoy what I do for a living in banking. I don't love it though. What I do love is being the president of WillPower and help
fed your soul.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I love coaching wheelchair basketball, which has become a massive part of my life.
I was actually going to ask you about that, because I think there's a trend especially with this social media thing now, people focused on themselves exclusively, and the real joy in life for most people, and some people never get this, is benefiting others, helping others.
Yeah.
And that's why I think what makes this community so different is it's full of people that know helping others is where you find the joy in life.
Yeah.
And so that's why, we all have these jobs, we got to pay the bills, but there are things that we do that bring us true joy that are just because we can benefit somebody else's life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's cool.
I want to ask you about your daughter,
Kyla. Yes.
Tell me how she has handled all of this. I mean, it's got to be hard for any other kid in the sense that, she knows her brother has had, something horrific happen to him, but then, she's still a kid. And it's like, okay, mom and dad, I'm over here.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
She's 12 now?
She's 12. She's in 7th grade at Sycamore. She plays basketball for the school team, and they won their tournament. Yeah, right. Yeah, she's a good basketball player. They won their tournament actually in Hayes this past weekend and went 4-0 and did a great job. So soccer here is her top sport, though. She plays for Lone Star Soccer Academy, big into soccer, very good. How she's handled it, when I first saw Kyla, she was obviously naturally very sad for Will. But the cool thing about Kyla, she's extremely protective of Will, and which gives my heart some comfort in that she'll be in 8th grade at Sycamore next year when he'll be in 6th grade. So they'll have a year together at Sycamore as he transitions. Then they'll have 2 years of high school together. And I just wouldn't cross Kyla when it comes to Will. We were at Dell match play maybe 2 weeks after he'd gotten out of the hospital. And there's a kid, a little boy, that just kept on staring at Will. And it's natural for kids to look at the chair and stare. And Kyla did not like it. And I say little boy, it was probably someone her age. And she quickly told the boy that, hey, please stop staring, and
take a picture.
Yeah. So she's highly protective. When he got home from the hospital, she decided, he had a bunk bed at the time, and she decided that she was going to sleep on his top bunk. Oh. And she did that for 6 months. They slept in the same room. She just wanted to be close to him and there for him if, he ever needed anything in the middle of the night. So she's been amazing.
If you step back and you look at like how this has affected her life as well, it was changed the trajectory of what your entire family.
Absolutely. But it wouldn't surprise me to see Kyla get into physical therapy one day. She wants to get into real estate. You can get your real estate license at the high school now, which is crazy.
Yeah, we're big supporters.
Yeah,
of that.
So she wants to do that.
Come into real estate, they say it's fun.
Yeah.
So she's interested in real estate. Cody George, good friend of mine.
Yes, I love Cody.
Yeah, Cody's a great guy, good friend of mine. She's wanting to learn about real estate. She wants to get a real estate license in high school, but she wants to go to college still and do something that will support her real estate life. And so she's got some big goals, and she kind of knows what she wants to do. But then again, with the world that she's been thrown into, it's funny how you see these physical therapists, which are amazing humans and individuals, just like the medical field with nurses and doctors. We've gotten to know a lot of great people, but it's when life is thrown at you, and it's funny how you gravitate towards certain professions after seeing so much of it growing up. So it wouldn't surprise me one day she decides to do physical therapy, but all in all, Kyla's doing great. She's growing up quickly. She'll be 13 in June.
Was there a point in your household where Will's home and she's there and she's kind of kid gloving him, and then all of a sudden they turn into brother and sister, and she
absolutely
starts giving him crap? Because as a parent, I could think, okay, we're good.
Yeah,
that happens, right?
Absolutely.
Like, we're good. They're giving each other crap.
They're still brothers and sisters. Yeah. They were doing it last night. They were getting after each other. So there's a huge love and connection between. They're only 16 months apart, so they were already very close. But they have their moments, and they're no different.
Yeah, I think if Kyla was like I said, kid gloves all the time, you'd be like, no, that's not what he needs. He needs you to be his sister. And,
absolutely.
He's going to grow by those confrontations.
Absolutely. She's quick to point out that if Will's getting preferential treatment or anything.
I'm sure.
She points
That's
it out.
not
She's
fair.
like, why isn't he putting up the
Hey,
dishes?
I've had a 12-year-old girl before. This is like buckle up, baby, because this is you're about to get to some interesting years.
I know. It's coming. She won't talk to me. I don't think she'll listen to this.
It gets a lot worse. Tim.
She talks to mom about boys already, and she'll probably hear this at some point. But she hasn't come to me yet, and I think she's worried about me giving her a hard time, which is the exact opposite. When she comes to me one day, I'm going to listen and tell her, just, as long as he's a good dude, I don't care.
Know. My daughter Gracie, she was 13, I think. I came home from work one day. She's sitting at the counter at the kitchen, and I said, "Hey, Gracie, how was your day?" And she looked at me, and tears rolled down her face, and she, not a word, she ran upstairs, and I was like, "Oh crap, I'm in trouble."
Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
just,
And
the hormones kick in.
Yes.
You don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
But
These are important years. I think my wife has told me on a few occasions that these high school years for moms and daughters can be even rough, even more challenging.
Rough.
And she's like, you need to step up your game and be ready. Because, there's going to be times where I need you to be there.
Yeah.
I called my husband my daughter's attorney. And so he was always ready with a defense for her. And, it was kind of a good cop, bad cop kind of thing. But we made it. We made it to the other side. There is hope.
Yeah.
Where I did think I was going to choke her out at a couple of times,
Yeah,
but
sure.
we did make it out.
But the challenges just become different. There's still challenges when they're adults.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
So what do you do to recharge? Just you, because you went through this too. And
Are you 100% recovered from the accident?
Yes. I had some broken, thumb, broken toe, had the appendix removed, colon tear, had a hernia that had to be surgically repaired like months after we waited, did like 6 months after the accident. Yeah, absolutely. I physically, I run a lot. I'm into exercise, do a lot of cardio. I love to coach my son's wheelchair basketball team. That is probably my most favorite thing I do right now. So, it's funny how, life will come full circle on you. Basketball played such a huge role in my life growing up. And then I was asked by a guy named Lee Brown, who runs the Austin Wreckers. And he's a big old dude, amputee. His story is amazing in that he had a full ride to University of Arizona coming out of high school here in Austin to play for Lute Olson, who's a great legendary basketball coach at Arizona. And he would have been on the national championship team at Arizona in the early 90s, but he decided to skip school, get on a motorcycle, and he woke up in the hospital with his leg amputated. And so he got into wheelchair basketball and wheelchair track. And anyway, I don't know how Lee got in touch with us, but I think maybe a month or two after Will had been out of the hospital, he got a hold of us and asked Will to come out to a wheelchair basketball practice. And Will fell in love with it from like day one. Wow. He's just Will's a highly competitive person.
He needed that outlet.
That outlet. And so
did Dad too, it sounds like.
For me, it was huge. In the hospital, sports became so non-important. And I just cared about his life and how he was going to live life. But then once you get out and you start to get back into a normal routine, like, what do you do? And when we discovered wheelchair basketball, I was blown away. It's a different sport. It's a highly physical sport. You got all these metal chairs banging into each other, kids flipping out of their chairs. And so Lee came to me, got to know him a little bit. He learned about my basketball background. He's like, we need someone to coach the prep team, which is ages 7 through 13. Mm-hmm. He says, you know basketball, you've been around it. And at first I said no. I was like, it's too much. I mean, I've got so much going on. I said, but I'll come around and learn about the sport. And we went to a tournament 2 years ago in Omaha. So Will, during COVID, our little team kind of just disappeared. A lot of families did not want to come back during COVID, but the older team, which is 14 through 19 years old, they call it the JV varsity team, they continued to play. So Will, as a 9-year-old, played up with these kids. At the time, he was only 9 years old, but he's playing with kids 14 through 19 years old, wow, which is insane. And so I went to a tournament in Omaha and got to see it at a high level, and I just fell in love with it. And then I got back in town and I called Lee and I said, hey, if you still want me to coach this team, I'm all about it. I'm ready. And so it started then, and I've been coaching it ever since. And that gives me, going back to your question, how do I kind of unwind? Well, Thursday nights at South Manchac Baptist Church in South Austin, that's where we practice every Thursday night. I get to go spend time. We have about 11 kids now on our prep team. We won our last tournament in Arlington. The Austin Wreckers prep team had never won a tournament until Arlington.
Wow.
That was their first time prep. So that was a huge deal. And then we'll be in Oklahoma City this upcoming weekend for our next tournament. You got to travel a lot for this because there's not a lot of teams.
Like,
you got to play other
city.
Each town. So,
and that's a good thing.
No, it's a good thing.
Is,
it's a great thing. But it's funny, we're always recruiting and looking for kids because a lot of people don't realize that this opportunity is out there for kids. And it's not just kids like Will. It could be, we have a kid on our team that has an amputated leg. It's from cancer. And we have kids with CP. I mean, we have all kinds of kids with story. I mean, when you walk into a gym or a tournament, you see hundreds of chairs, and that means hundreds of stories, that are in that gym. It's very powerful to go watch a wheelchair basketball tournament and watch what people are doing to move forward with life.
I'm envisioning the first time, Will was in this wheelchair and out on the court and bashing fingers and stuff. And the mama side of me is like, holy hell, he's going to get more hurt.
Yeah. Well,
but then there's probably something that fed that kid's soul. It's like, he was feeling stuff. He was hitting things. And
day one, he fell in love with the sport. His first game, maybe 2 minutes into the game, he clipped someone and flipped them out of their chair. And that style of play, I knew Will was ready because he's a physical type kid. Yeah. Mom never had a problem with it. She loves it just as much as I do. She's my biggest fan as a coach. I'm learning how to coach kids that I'm having to learn about all my kids because they all have a story. They all have strengths and weaknesses. And it's a different brand of basketball. I grew up playing able-bodied basketball, wheelchair basketball, although it is basketball. It's a different philosophy. And if you're not working together as a team, you will get absolutely run out of the gym. Yeah. And so Will, though, has been able to play on the older team and play off the ball because he's not going to score on 10-foot goals very often, although he scored on 10-foot goal 3 games in a row recently.
Wow.
As a young guy. But he has learned the importance of playing off the ball and doing the dirty work, the work that is required by teams to have success. Yeah. Then when he plays with me on the little team, it's 8.5-foot goals, smaller basketball. Then he handles the ball a lot. He shoots a lot. He scores a lot. So there's different roles for each team, but he plays on both teams. So he'll play 8 to 10 games this week in Oklahoma City.
And his goal is to go to Alabama. Right?
Bama, Roll Tide. Yeah. So there's no UT. Will's a big UT guy, naturally, with us being UT family. But the only school in the state that has a wheelchair basketball program is UT Arlington, and they're amazing. They've won back-to-back national championships on the men's program. But Will fell in love with Bama. There's a kid named Peter Berry. If you've never heard the Peter Berry story out of Houston, I highly recommend you Google it. There was an E60 story on ESPN about him and his brother. They were driving home from Colorado with their family. I think they were 10 years old at the time. Head-on collision. His parents died on impact. Ooh. Him and his brother suffered the same paralysis point at the waist. Anyway, Peter went on to become the #1 wheelchair basketball recruit in the United States and committed to Alabama. Will has talked to Peter on several occasions and gotten to know each other.
Oh, wow.
Jose Altuve was Will's idol for a long time. But then one night, as I was tucking him in the bed after he had met Peter, he told me, "Dad, I want to be like number 9 one day," and which is Peter Berry.
Yeah.
And he's at Bama. And so, there's about 25 D1 or just programs in college now that do wheelchair basketball. It's a growing sport. A lot of people don't realize there's that many colleges that do it now, but Bama's one of the top schools. Bama treats their wheelchair athletes like they do their football players, which you know how they treat their football players. Yeah. So they pour a lot of money into the adaptive sports at Alabama. Mom loves it. Mom wants to go to Bama with them one day and get a beach house in Gulf Shores. She's told me that already.
Hey, there's the beach house.
There
that's
you
true.
Go. I don't know if I'll get to use. I'll be back working probably still. But yeah, he's set his sights on playing at Alabama. And truthfully, I think Will if he continues with the same work ethic, and he loves the game, loves to compete, I have no doubt that, Will's going to be in a position one day to probably choose where he wants to play college basketball. I firmly believe that. He believes that. And it's been extremely rewarding to be, we're constantly in the gym, working.
Yeah. So what do you say now? And I know this happens to you, people that come up to you and say, man, Tim, I'm sorry this happened to you. What do you say?
Well, I say this is, it's life. And I quickly tell them, like I said earlier, I said, hey, this could have been worse. And there's worse situations going on in the world. Will is a daily dose of perspective for us. But being in this environment with the basketball and the wheelchair track and the families that we meet, we come across many situations that are a lot worse than Will.
Yeah.
His brain injury healed. If that had not healed and we were having to do everything for him, where would we be at then? So we focus. I tell when someone asks me that question, I say, look, we're extremely blessed for his life and his heartbeat, his mind and his arms. And there's just a lot of things to be thankful for. There's a lot of blessings.
That's what I'm taking away from this. It's a terrible tragedy and nobody'd wish that on anybody else. But out of this came some really great things for you and your family and for Will and a sister and your wife. And,
we haven't stopped living life.
Yeah.
I feel like we live more life today than we did prior to the accident.
It's because something was almost taken away from you, and now you appreciate that so much more. When it's taken away for a minute, like it was when you were laying on the ground there, and then it's given back to you, the appreciation just soars.
Yeah, no, we have done so much since the accident. We have been to Disney World twice, and we traveled a lot to Colorado. He's snow skied. He water skis.
Wow.
He loves to water ski. It's on a wakeboard, a chair on a wakeboard, basically. And he loves water. And I grew up water skiing a lot in Clear Lake and Lake McQueen and Seguin. And so to see him do, we just move forward. And a lot of that's back to my wife. Like before we go do something, before we travel, she's a researcher and a planner, and she'll call ahead and get prepared for what it's going to be like, whether it's snow skiing or water skiing or zip lining. We want to be prepared, but we're going to go do it in one way or another. We're going to keep living life and let him have the experiences that we have. Yeah. And so I don't think we've come across anything that he hasn't been able to do of what we're doing traveling wise. So we just keep moving forward.
You have to. That's life, right?
Tim, I am struck on the feeling that as much as you feel this town has given to you and your family, the Allen family has given so much more to Dripping Springs, and just kind of the way you guys are spreading your knowledge and like I said, again, turning your tragedy into triumph, and just really, you guys are amazing people. Wow. And we're blessed to have you guys in this community. Totally blessed.
I agree with that. Yeah. And something that's so terrible has produced something that's so great. Your family has become a billboard for how people can react to things that could be terrible tragedies. Mm-hmm. You guys have made it. You've made something some good things come out of something that was very difficult to endure. So what's next for the foundation?
Next is we have a baseball tournament it's the last weekend of February. I think we had 300 teams in it last year, roughly.
Oh, wow.
We had even more the year before. We had like close to 400. The numbers dropped last year because we had some weather issues. Also, the Walk All Sports, who helps us do the tournament, kind of limited on how many fields we had access to. The hub of the tournament will always be at DSYSA. So we as a foundation, we run that site, that concession. There's still WillPower signs all over the baseball fields out there. So that's really the hub of the tournament then. But we play in Henley, San Marcos, Taylor, Georgetown. So we had to play the tournament at multiple sites. So that's our next big event coming up that we've just started planning for, which has been a nice fundraiser. I think we raised about $25,000 last year doing that baseball tournament. We have a charity clay shooting event that we'll do at Hog Heaven. That local lady Haley Herring at H&H Flooring helps us with. She was a very successful shooter at the high school level, and her family helps us do that at Hog Heaven. We do an annual gala each year. We had a gala at the Terrace Club, which was an amazing event. It was our first big gala benefiting the foundation. The first gala benefited Will, then COVID happened.
Okay.
So this past August, we did a gala and raised a substantial amount of money for year one. So
I saw the number and I was blown away. That's a lot of money to be raised.
Yes.
Especially for a first.
You're looking for still community sponsors and
Yeah, for the baseball tournament, there's really just two levels of sponsorship. We'll have a title sponsor, and then we'll have banner sponsorships. Okay. We'll put banners up all over the fields at Henley and in Dripping Springs. We don't do banners at all the other sites. We'll have a front gate banner announcing the tournament. But yeah, we're looking anyone in the community that would like to be a part of the WillPower baseball tournament, the WillPower clay shooting event, the gala that we're going to do each fall. Just reach out to us, WillPower Community Foundation on Facebook or Instagram and message us, and we'll be happy to talk about that. So, but our goal again it comes down to helping children. We helped a young man named Mason and Buda recently. We bought all his driving equipment, his hand controlled
I saw that
equipment,
on Facebook. That's really
which
cool.
is a big deal. He's 16 and he got his driver's license. And so we helped the family pay for all that stuff, which is not cheap. And so little things like that, it's been very rewarding to actually help fulfill our mission. It was a little slow through COVID, but now we're being contacted by families and that have had spinal cord injuries, and we're able to fulfill our mission and help them financially and really emotionally. My wife had a conversation the other day with a mom who has a son in El Paso that was in an auto accident, and Shara talked to the mom for probably 30 minutes, just being a mom, and had been through it. I mean, Shara is a huge resource for the foundation and does a ton of work for us behind the scenes. And so, which, I said earlier, she retired from tax accounting, but, she does a lot and she does a lot for the foundation. So, probably haven't talked enough about Shara. She's truly amazing in what she does for our family and the foundation. So,
Well, I really appreciate the time that you spent with us today. I've learned a lot, and it's helped give me a good perspective on life that sometimes I'm mired in my little crap, and you guys have really done great things out of
me
something
too.
That could be a terrible tragedy.
I'm the same way. There's days where I'm having a bad day and I have to be, I think about it. I see Will rolling by and I'm like, wait, is what
life is
it's
good.
Not that important. Life is good.
Upward and onward, right?
Yeah, always.
Upward and onward.
Always. Yeah.
Well, Tim, thanks very much for coming in. We really appreciate the time, and people can find out more at the willpowercommunity.org, and they can reach out to you guys there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
This show has been brought to you in part by the real estate pros at the Mallet Integrity Team. When you're looking to buy or sell, you need them on your side. Why settle for less when you can have real estate done right? Give them a call at 512-829-2062 or get more info at malletintegrityteam.com.
Thanks for listening. If you have comments or feedback, please email us at malletandmichelle@gmail.com.
Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Mallet and Michelle.
Listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
New episodes every Tuesday, and leave us a review.